Hello and welcome to the Ask Dr. Pickel show, where we help find answers for people who have chronic conditions, chronic health problems. All right, so let's dive right in today with another interesting topic. This has been kind of a series here in these last few, and that is managing brain inflammation. We've talked about brain inflammation in some of the other videos, so now we'll talk about what we look at and kind of what we do to manage it, because it's not always the simple, hey, just take this and it goes away, or take an anti-inflammatory and that solves the whole problem. So let's dive right in and let's go into some factors that go into brain inflammation. So remember, brain inflammation, inflammation is destruction. This is inflammation basically causing brain cells to die off, which is not good, which can lead to all kinds of health problems, because your brain controls everything. Everything in your body controlled by your brain. So if the brain is having problems, this can start to cause all kinds of issues, and some of them definitely will not show up on typical tests, because blood tests don't show a lot of things that occur in the brain. All right, so one of the things that can really, or let's start with this. One of the things we look at or try to look at when we're talking about the brain inflammation is we've got to consider we're going to call it the BBB. This is your blood-brain barrier. So the blood-brain barrier is that wall between the rest of your body and your brain. Very important. If that's not working properly, if it's leaky, then things from your lower body can get into your upper body. Inflammatory products, immune system cells, not good, because these will really cause a lot of inflammation in the body. Now, the thing is these barrier systems are also related, so we have to recognize that. Not only do we have a blood-brain barrier, but we have a gut barrier. We've heard of leaky gut. Well, if your blood-brain barrier is compromised, you could actually call that leaky brain. So these inflammatory products can get through, or inflammation can occur easily. Just like I eat a certain food and it may inflame my gut real easily if I have leaky gut. Also, if I eat a certain food, it may increase inflammation in my brain due to leaky brain. We also have lung barrier, skin barrier. We've got these barrier systems. They're part of our protection, part of our immune system, and we need them working properly. But the blood-brain barrier definitely can become compromised, and this can equal problems easily. Now, again, this isn't as much of a cause, it's an effect. Now, another factor that we'll see often is hypoxia. What is hypoxia? So hypoxia is low oxygen. Now, this could be caused by a breathing issue. Maybe you have a lung disease or respiratory issue. Yeah, those can be causes. But to go even deeper, do you have an anemia? Do you have an iron anemia, a B vitamin anemia, some other type of anemia? There's many things that can cause hypoxic issues. And a lot of times just the general ones that you, like if somebody says, oh, I've got asthma and they're wheezing all the time. Yeah, this could cause some hypoxia. Or if you've been a smoker forever and you've got some lung disease going on, yeah, that could also tie into it too. But let's look a little deeper. Let's look at these anemias. What are your red blood cells doing? What's your iron status? Do you have a pernicious anemia? We've got to find out those things, or otherwise they can start to cause problems in the brain also. Okay, so, and then getting more to an inflammatory agent, one that we'll see commonly, infections. So infections, and this could be many types of infections. It doesn't even have to be infections within the brain itself. Peripheral infections, infections in our body. So again, if I have an infection in my gut and my blood-brain barrier is not very good, yeah, these inflammatory products can go to the brain. But there's infections that can affect our nervous system too. Very common ones, especially in people who have autoimmune conditions like Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, Lyme disease, different infections that can really affect the brain. And a lot of these aren't easily detectable, even on blood tests, which is really your main way of looking at these things. So a lot of these can be have a stealth type mode and go undetected until you do other methods of testing to find out, do you have them, do you not? All right, another one that can fit into this is hormone imbalance. Okay, so hormone imbalances. Yeah, if your estrogen levels are not proper, if your testosterone levels are not proper, in women, estrogen is what drives your frontal lobes of your brain, and testosterone, of course, for men. Now, in people who have blood sugar problems, you can start to convert your estrogen to testosterone in women, or in men, you can start to turn your testosterone into estrogen. And of course, this can create brain changes and brain problems. Also, low hormones overall. If your hormones are low, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, that can accelerate brain degeneration. We need these hormones. Another one too, thyroid hormone. If your thyroid hormone is low, let's say you have Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism that's undetected or untreated, low thyroid hormone accelerates brain degeneration, brain inflammation. Not good. All your healing processes slow down. So hormone imbalance, definitely an issue there. Another one, immune, which again, this is really more of an effect, but dysregulation. All right, so this would be more like autoimmune conditions. This would be, again, if you have an autoimmune condition, very high percentage chance you have brain inflammation. Even a higher percentage chance you have gut inflammation. It just kind of goes hand in hand. So again, figuring out what's at the bottom of this, what's promoting the immune system to dysregulate or promoting the immune system to be compromised. That's the big thing with this, and finding out what these bad guys are that are affecting this. Because especially if you have an autoimmune condition like multiple sclerosis, yeah, now your immune system has made antibodies to your brain cells, and not a good scenario. And that will definitely cause brain inflammation. But again, a lot of other autoimmune conditions can also accelerate this or cause brain inflammation. Okay, and then another one, heavy, yikes, metals. Heavy metals, yes. So heavy metals tend to have more of an affinity for the nervous system, especially heavy metals, mercury, more of an affinity for nervous system tissue. And again, which is the brain, the gut are the two biggest places, and then the spinal cord next. But still, yeah, if you have heavy metals affecting that are in the brain, not good. These are within the cell. They aren't floating around in your bloodstream. If I eat a can of tuna, which is really high in organic mercury, that'll float around. That mercury might float around in my bloodstream for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but it's going to all of a sudden disappear. Where did it go? It did not just exit out of my system because I didn't go to the bathroom or anything like that. It went quickly into my cells. And again, once it gets in the cells, you can't pick it up on a blood test. So sometimes people say, oh, I got my blood tested for heavy metals and it was negative. They didn't show any. Well, yeah. Now, if you were eating tuna every day on a regular, maybe for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you might start to show some blood levels that are high. Or people drinking water out of pipes that have lead in them or something like that, you might show higher levels or elevated levels in the blood because you have a constant source. But if it's just, hey, I'm only eating this once a week, twice a week, yeah, it's going into your cells. And again, this is a horrible inflammatory agent. It's amazing how these heavy metals are so destructive to your cells and how much they compromise your immune system, which opens the door to infectious agents and other bad guys. So the thing is these heavy metals not only have to be in the brain, but also let's say they're in the gut or some other area. And again, this can over time affect your immune system, compromise your blood-brain barrier, and now you're getting inflammatory products going to the brain. So it could be primary, meaning it's in the brain itself, or it could be secondary, meaning it's in another area affecting you, which can go along with infections and other things too. All right, another one would be toxic chemicals. And when we think toxic chemicals, we tend to think the worst, but actually a lot of chemicals are toxic. In fact, now with everything that's going on with coronavirus, I mean, people are using tons of solvents. These are toxic at high levels. But there's so many other things. There's herbicides and pesticides, which if you live in an agricultural area, you're definitely susceptible to, or near a golf course, or if you spray this stuff yourself to kill weeds. But also it gets on our foods, just in the farming process. And it doesn't wash out, it gets down into the actual vegetable or fruit or whatever. And again, we eat this stuff and it gets into our system. PCBs, phthalates, these things from plastics, just so many potential chemicals in our environment. So the other side of that is it's not really about the chemicals. There's no way to avoid all this stuff. There's no way to avoid all the heavy metals in the world, all the infectious agents in the world. It's getting our body's ability to detoxify working properly. Because many people are not good detoxifiers, especially people with autoimmune conditions, chronic health conditions, usually genetically not the best detoxifiers. This stuff gets stuck, compromises the immune system, and opens the door to other bad guys. So the thing is finding these things and getting rid of them. And you typically won't find these things on your typical conventional medical tests, typical blood tests, MRIs, things like that. They aren't going to show up. Now, there's one more thing, too, that affects the brain that we don't pay as much attention to. I think I'll put it right up here. Stress. And I think I'll put this one over here. Trauma. And actually, they can kind of be related. So stress, physical stress, emotional stress, these things can inflame the brain. Actually, if the brain is already inflamed if you have some other health conditions, then you're more susceptible to stress. Stress will affect you more than another person. A person can say, hey, my husband goes and exercises and he goes out for a run, feels fine. But if I go out for a run, I crash for 3 days. Yeah, that physical stress affected you. It inflamed you. Or emotional stress. It can be, I had a bad day at work. My boss yelled at me. And again, I crashed for 2 days. It made me feel horrible. In fact, I got the flu afterwards, where another person says, yeah, my boss yelled at me today, and then go on with their next moment. No big deal. All right. So again, if things are inflamed, if things aren't working right, you're more susceptible. And then trauma, this would be more of a cause. So if you hit your head, if you get a concussion, concussions happen more than you would think. And it doesn't have to be in a sporting or a sports scenario. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be a football player or a soccer player to get a concussion. You could just hit your head on a cabinet as you stand up or something. And again, this trauma to the brain can induce brain inflammation. Now, the thing about concussions is even after it so-called heals and goes away, or maybe symptoms decrease, some people who've had more than one concussion can what we call chemically reconcuss, meaning the chemistry in the brain, because of the concussion, created an immune system event in the brain. This immune system event can restart on its own. And it could just be some stress, or I caught a flu and now I've got concussion symptoms too. So again, there's different factors that go into that also. And we've got to look at all of this. So it's not as simple as taking some anti-inflammatory and just getting on inflammation. It's looking for the cause or causes. Rarely is it just one of these things. Usually it's multiple things that are causing this. So once you find out what the issues are, then you can say, hey, here's what you need to do about it. Do we need to get rid of these heavy metals or infections? Do we need to do things that help to offset your stress? Do we need to do things that strengthen or balance your hormones or your immune system? So we've got to look at you as a person, not as a diagnosis. We could say, hey, there's Mr. Brain Inflammation. No, there's Joe who has brain inflammation, but he has other causes. Because again, inflammation always has a cause. It's never just there by itself. There's always a reason there's a fire in the house. So that's the way you have to look at things. And that's the way that we look at things when we deal with patients who have these types of issues. And then once we find it, get the inflammation down, or get rid of the inflammation and all the bad guys that are causing it, then the body can actually start to heal and repair. If the house is on fire, you can't paint it and recarpet it right then. You got to wait till you put the fire out. And that's what we got to do with brain inflammation. So I hope that gave everybody some great information. And let's see here. All right. And Leslie, hi. How do we know when it's inflamed? Did I miss it? Just tell me out. No, good question, Leslie. So basically, if the brain's inflamed, look at some of our past videos that talk about mild brain inflammation, moderate brain inflammation. They'll talk more about those symptoms. But yeah, it could be not only be headaches, it could be dizziness, it could be nausea, it could be memory loss, focus, concentration, so many possibilities with the brain. But look at those other videos and they'll give you a little more detailed or in-depth information. Hi, Sandy. Thanks for watching too. And hi, Shelly. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody watching today. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't forget to give us the thumbs up or give us the Google love for all the stuff, and share us. So, because a lot of people need this information, I feel. All right. Have a wonderful day and God bless.